I encourage you all to put your Zoom calls on mute, so this way we eliminate any background noise. And then if you have any questions, please utilize the chat function below there on the bottom. I'm going to walk you through the agenda, and Libby, you can go to the next slide, please. So want to jump into the introduction of our terrific speaker, Joshua Friedman, who is the Chief Executive Officer for 6 Seconds. But before I do that, I just want to do a little bit of a setup regarding EQ, emotional intelligence. We often spend a lot of time on some of the hard skills, technical knowledge, skill sets and competencies to help us in our jobs, our daily routines, and the challenges that we're faced with every day. And often we neglect some of those competencies and skills that make us better leaders for ourselves and for our staffs. And so we wanted to spend today talking about emotional intelligence. And what Joshua is going to do is provide some real sort of takeaways, strategies, if you will, that you can apply immediately in the work that you're doing. So keeping in line with the whole positioning around our webcast program is that we look to connect with each other and connect with experts who are willing to share their knowledge with us to help us in our roles and responsibilities, share amongst each other, and then ultimately apply that knowledge. So with that, I'm going to jump into introducing Joshua, our speaker. So Joshua Friedman is one of the world's leading specialists on developing and applying emotional intelligence to improve performance. For over a decade, he has helped lead the world's preeminent emotional intelligence organizations, developing offices and representatives in 25 countries, top practitioners and researchers, renowned scientists and leaders as advisory board members, and award-winning materials, including 5 validated assessment tools. Joshua also co-developed 6 Seconds EQ certification training program, which he has delivered in 5 continents as a master trainer to hundreds of professionals seeking practical tools for learning and teaching emotional intelligence. He chairs the International Nexus EQ conferences and has helped launch emotional intelligence programs and companies in over a dozen countries. Joshua's applied research focuses on organizational climate and the factors that enhance individual and team performance. Partnering with leaders, he works to identify key relationships and emotional intelligence factors that limit and enhance success, and then helps organizations implement new systems so teams excel and talent thrives. So with that, welcome Joshua Friedman.
I'd like to share with you some strategies for using emotional intelligence in your leadership. We're in these incredibly tumultuous times, and there's a lot of emotional forces that are pushing us and pushing our team members and pushing our clients and community members. And in this time, using emotional intelligence as a leader is a way for you to create more balance and calm and focus. It's like when you're standing on the deck of a ship in a storm, you don't want to be tossed around. You want to be able to hold your hands on the wheel. And this skill of emotional intelligence is about the inner work that you need to do in order to show up as the leader you mean to be, and to engage and enroll and support people to move together towards the vision that you're trying to create. What I'd like to do is share with you 3 practical strategies of how you can use your emotional intelligence for yourself and for the people that you're leading. And I think what you'll find is that these 3 work together. At 6 Seconds, the organization that I lead, we have a model, which is a process framework of how you put emotional intelligence into action. And there are 3 steps. And the 3 tips that I want to give you are connected to those 3 steps. So first, I just want to briefly explain this model. In the model, there are 3 parts. The first part is blue. It's like a pool of water for reflecting, and that's about getting the data. And then in the red part, we stop and we say, well, let me assess that data and use it intentionally instead of just reacting. And then once we've done that assessment and we've slowed down, we can move to the green area, which is about moving forward, connected with people and connected with purpose. It's a circle because we keep going around and doing it again. And so this process you might go through in just a few seconds, maybe 6, as you're in a meeting, as you're preparing to have a conversation, as you're mediating a conflict, as you're making a plan, as you're getting up in the morning trying to figure out what your priority is for the day. You just go around and around this process. And the 3 tips that I'm going to give you are going to help you do that. The first is, for this blue area of know yourself, is just acknowledging emotion. I think a lot of us get into this state of doing and task focus, and we forget that our own emotions are real, that they're there, they're affecting us. The neurobiology is that these emotion chemicals, they're affecting literally every cell in our bodies. And they're affecting our heart rate, they're affecting our digestion, they're affecting what we notice, what we think about, how we make our decisions. And all that's happening whether we're conscious of it or not. But when we acknowledge emotion, it's kind of like cleaning our glasses and being able to see a little bit more clearly. And we say, oh, okay, I might be influenced by this feeling that I'm having. These feelings are real. They're a part of our basic biology. They're affecting us. They're affecting others. And so acknowledging it is a way for us to kind of confront reality and say, okay, this is part of what's going on. Often we get caught up in one emotion that's up on the surface, and we forget that there's a whole range of emotions going on underneath. So maybe you're frustrated with somebody, and that frustration is big, but underneath that, you also care about them, you feel connected, you feel supported, you know that there's some alignment, that there's a reason why you're working together. All that's going on behind the scenes. And so when we're acknowledging emotion, it's not just acknowledging the one that's on the surface, but looking deeper and saying, well, what else am I feeling? Or what else are you feeling? Tuning in to just say, okay, these are real. And we can use this in a meeting, we can use this in a conversation, and we can use it with ourselves. So I want to give you a little moment to practice this. And what I'd like you to do is to take out a piece of paper, and at the top, just write down some aspect of your work or a situation that you're in, something that's challenging for you, something that's important for you, and just start writing some different feelings. And if you'd like to, you can use multiple colors and you can make it really beautiful. But if you have a big feeling, write it big. If you have a small feeling, write it small. And if you're not sure what the feeling is, that's okay. You can just make a squiggle. And if it's, maybe it's a hot, spiky, difficult feeling, you can make a spiky shape, with big red lines in it. And if it's sort of a quiet, uncertain feeling, maybe it's a little sketchy and cloudy, and you're just going to capture your feeling state, either in words or symbols or colors. And as you do that, what you're going to notice is that there are more feelings than you thought there were. And just keep asking yourself this question. What else am I feeling? after you've done that, you can now go back and consider, what are these feelings telling me? Emotions are messages from you to you. They're helping you understand opportunities and threats. Every feeling is there for a reason, and it's asking you a question. What do you want to protect? Fear. What do you want to make happen? Anger. What do you want to connect to? Joy. What are you looking forward to? Anticipation. What are you losing? Sorrow. Every feeling is a question. And as you look at these different feelings on your paper, just consider, what questions are these feelings asking me? Sometimes people think that if they're practicing emotional intelligence, they have to share all their feelings. And that's not what I'm saying. And you don't have to listen to all your feelings. You don't have to obey them. They're not the boss of you. But they're there for you to consider. I would like you to imagine your emotions are like advisors. People that you talk to help you think through a challenge. You don't necessarily do exactly what that advisor says, but you also don't completely ignore that advisor. So just looking at your piece of paper and consider, what advice are each of these feelings offering me? Different feelings offer different perspectives. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, have you considered this? Have you considered this? Have you considered this? Once you've gotten that data, you'll understand a lot more about how you're seeing the situation. And that's going to help you move into the next part of the practice in the red area. In the red area, the strategy that I want to give you is something we call exercising optimism. Now, sometimes people hear the word optimism and they think that it's about positive thinking. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Just stick a smile on it. Look at the bright side. I don't think that really works. And research says that when we get into this bright siding or, just paint everything yellow and pretend we're happy, what actually happens is we're less happy and we see less options and we have less energy. That's about denial. Exercising optimism is about confronting the reality and seeing possibilities. It's about having this dual view where we're able to say, yeah, this is really a problem, and we can find a way through. Yes, this is crap, and there are options. And I think whether you're talking to kids or team members or funders or community members or talking to yourself, exercising optimism is about acknowledging and expanding. One of the keys for exercising optimism is to consider there are multiple possibilities. Sometimes when we get caught up in our reactions, we only see one or two. I can scream or I can not scream. I can give up or I can continue. In reality, we know that there are a zillion options. But when we're in a state of reaction, it's super hard to access those. So part of exercising optimism is to slow down and expand. When we are in a state of reacting and we're not seeing possibilities, we narrow our focus. So exercising optimism sometimes requires expanding the focus and not getting too caught up in what's possible. I was talking with a group of engineers one time, and they have a really hard time with this because I said, okay, well, let's practice this exercising optimism idea and let's come up with some ideas. And someone would say an idea. Someone else would say, but that's not possible because of blah, 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 blah. And, they're trained for that. That's part of what it is to be an engineer, is to assess the risks and assess the downsides. And that's really useful, but it also limits our possibilities. So I'm not saying to be unrealistic. What I'm saying is to just open up the range of what's possible and to start by expanding without the assessment and just put more ideas on the table. Can you come up with 3, 5, 10? If you have 10 possibilities, Maybe some of them are totally unrealistic, but that's okay. We can throw those ones out afterwards and come back to the 7 remaining, or even just the few remaining. But if we only say there's 2, we're not really in a place of freedom. Exercising optimism is about helping us see the potential. And when we exercise optimism, it unleashes energy in ourselves and in others. So I know that we're in some incredibly difficult circumstances right now in the world. And I'm not diminishing or downplaying that. I don't want to pretend that people aren't suffering. I don't want to pretend that our organizations aren't struggling. What I want to say is that, yes, that's real. And we can find more ways forward. And we have to, because we are in this place of struggle. So let's try this process of finding more possibilities. I'd like you to think about a challenge. And it could be the same one you worked on before, where you identified your range of emotions, or it could be something new. And I know this is maybe seems silly, but I would like you to see if you can come up with 100 different ways that you could move forward on this. And I want you to see in one, we're just going to give you 1 minute right now, and we're going to do a little countdown for you. It's going to be a race to see how many you can come up with in 1 minute, and then later you can expand. But don't worry if they're realistic. Don't worry if they're even helpful. So you can come up with bad ideas, but let's just expand the options. Okay, so you ready? We're going to have 1 minute. We're going to have a race to see how many ideas you can come up with for your challenge. Ready, set, go. Hopefully in that minute, you've come up with 10, 20, 30 different possibilities. And you can now go look at those and just do a little bit of assessment. Some of them are just dumb, cross them out. Some of them are probably going to make the situation worse, cross them out. Some of them, I hope you start seeing, oh, that actually is a possibility. That actually might help me. Maybe I need to refine that idea a little bit more. So put a little star by a couple of ones that you would like to explore more, or expand upon, or consider with a little bit more time. And now you've started to exercise optimism. You've expanded the possibilities, and you've looked at what haven't I tried yet. And that really brings us to the third tip in the green area. We have a competency that we call Pursue Noble Goals. It's about finding purpose and putting it into action. And as a leader, one of the simple tools that you have is what I call linking to purpose. It's a very simple idea. Somebody says, well, we need to do this report. Okay, how does it connect to our purpose? We need to clean up the office. Excellent. How does it link to our purpose? If as leaders we can help people see the connection between the day-to-day tasks that they're doing and the difficult day-to-day tasks that we have to do, if we can connect those small tasks to the bigger why, it unleashes our energy and it helps us stay focused on what matters. And when we're focused on what matters, it helps enroll others, whether we're talking about kids or adults. Linking to that bigger why gives people that orientation toward the future and helps them see this path forward. And we might not know exactly how to get there, but when we can link to purpose, what we say is, this is important because fill in the blank. And therefore we have to find a way. And when we're in that state of having to find a way, we unlock our ingenuity. We develop our skills to collaborate. We overcome impossible odds. That's human nature. In order to link change to purpose, you need to feel that sense of purpose. And it's one thing to have the nice plaque on the wall that says what your mission is, but it's something else to have it living in you and to really feel it. So what I would like you to do is just take a minute, and you can close your eyes if you want to. You can just stare at a point on the table if you want to. And just think about 3 moments in time when you could feel the purpose of your work. Somebody came to you and they said, you know, working with you, being part of this program, has changed my life. What I got from this was, what did they tell you? One time you saw somebody, you saw them change. You were working with them, they were in a really difficult space, and through your program, they found a safe place to be, and they got support, and they were connected with other people, and they were learning. And just a few months or maybe a few years later, you were looking at that person, and you said, wow, look at the change. What is that change? And finally, I'd like you to think about community, and I'd like you to fast forward into the future and think about all of the people who you have worked with, all of the people whose lives you've touched, all the people that you've supported. And just imagine that as a ripple effect in the world. These stones dropped in the pond, many, many, many stones. And the ripples are spreading out, and they're multiplying, and they're reinforcing each other. And something's changing in your community as a result. Maybe beyond your lifetime. Maybe we're all gone, but these ripples are still going on out there. And people are becoming more something. People are opening up to something. People are learning and teaching something. What is that something for you? So thinking about that story, thinking about that impact you could see in the real world, thinking about those ripple effects, just take a deep breath in and feel the power of that purpose. Feel what you've been contributing to and supporting. Now, think about some practical task that you have to do. A report you have to write, a fundraising email you need to send, a conversation you have to have about next week's schedule. And just make the link in your own mind and heart. How does that practical task connect to that purpose? And can you see that that's just one little building block, one stepping stone along the way to someplace that really matters? And if you can link that practical work to this bigger purpose, if you can do that inside your own head and inside your own heart, you can help other people do that. And can you see that all of a sudden that mundane task has an importance to it? And it actually got easier because you connected it with that feeling of purpose. That's the conversation to be having as a leader. Leaders enroll people to go someplace worth going. And when we link change to purpose, when we link tasks to purpose, when we link our day-to-day work to purpose, we're saying, hey, we have to do this because it matters for this long-term important goal that we're all committed to. So what I encourage you to do is to practice these 3 steps: acknowledging emotions, yours and others, exercising optimism, doing the work to expand and find more possibilities, and then linking to purpose to make sure that your day-to-day steps are connected to what truly matters to you and your communities and the people that you serve. There are probably big feelings that you're having in times of struggle, and this sense that the world really needs to be taking care of the most vulnerable people out there. And sometimes you might feel alone in that. But I want you to know that even those feelings are there to help you grow your commitment. And as we expand our possibilities and we say, what we've done in the past has worked, and there are more ways that we can move forward. There are things we haven't tried yet, and link to purpose, because this is what the world needs. As you do that, you will be bringing emotions into the equation. You'll be shifting out of reaction and being more intentional, and you'll be more purposeful. These are the 3 steps for emotional intelligence. And as you practice these 3 steps, you'll get better at it. You'll also teach that to the people around you through your role modeling. If you'd like to learn more about these areas, we have tons of resources on our website. We have tons of free articles and resources that you can use. We have low-cost online courses, and we have facilitators in tons of languages all over the world who are trained in supporting people to grow and develop these skills and to use them to make a positive difference in the world. I just want to end by saying thank you for your work. And I know that what you're doing is incredibly challenging and incredibly important. And so as you go through this process, you just did that practice of emotional intelligence. And you can keep doing that today and tomorrow and every day to move yourself and your organization further ahead.
All right. So thank you, Josh, for those insightful remarks. And as I promised on chat, Josh is going to be joining us live, so you guys will have an opportunity to ask him some questions. But first, I just want to do my own little sort of takeaway. And I had the opportunity to preview Josh's remarks. And what jumped out at me was the second exercise around seeing possibilities. And Josh, your comments around when you're in a state of reacting, it's very hard to expand your focus. Your focus becomes very narrow. And so what I took away from that little exercise was, one, being a better communicator, right? That is a true opportunity and possibility when I am dealing with a particular challenge and managing through emotions. Carving out time to address my pain points as a leader. So really setting time aside to say, okay, what are these things and what are the possibilities on how I might be able to address them? And then limit a lot of the negative conversations that can sort of influence the approach that I might be taking or considering and the possibilities around those challenges that I'm having. So for me, that was sort of an insightful opportunity to take a step back and say, okay, maybe I could be thinking about things differently. So I'd encourage you, if anyone has similar thoughts or reactions they'd like to share with Josh available to us, he can hear some of that insight. Anyone?
It's the Zoom silence.
It's the Zoom silence, Josh.
The Zoom silence of doom.
It is who's going to go first. So why don't we give it a few more seconds and then we'll launch into some Q&A, because I'm sure some folks might be anxious to ask you some questions. I know I am. Okay, have we reached that point, Josh, where that moment of silence, you go, okay, it's time to jump in to some conversation? I think
Going,
going,
gone.
gone. Okay, there we go. All right, so first question for you. I know many of you probably have this question, so consider me your proxy on this one. So, so if we want to train staff with more emotional intelligence skills, Josh, what do we do about that? How do we go about that?
Well, I would say that the good news, bad news. Um, One of the most powerful ways that you're going to train staff in this is practicing it yourself.
Right.
And one of my colleagues said, it's not enough to role model. We need to role model out loud.
Mhm.
And saying like, okay, well, I'm thinking about this. I'm hearing this. I'm feeling all these conflicting feelings. I'm trying to sort them out. I'm looking for options. I'm stepping back to remember my purpose. So those 3 steps are steps you can practice with staff. I suspect that a lot of your staff and a lot of you are much more motivated to focus on the kids than on yourselves.
Mhm.
And so I think sometimes in environments like yours, I'm making some assumption here, and you can tell me if this is right, that you might find it easier to say to staff, okay, I want to practice this together with us so that you can turn around and do this with the kids. And I think that just creates some immediate buy-in for people who really care about kids learning these kind of skills. So one resource that we have that I highly recommend, I'll put it in the chat. It's called the Pop-Up Festival.
Okay.
And it's our project in partnership with UNICEF World Children's Day. And it's really a curriculum that's free, and it's creative and fun. And you can do it on Zoom, you can do it in person, you can do it in hybrid ways. And there are activities for little ones and medium ones and bigger ones. And so a lot of those activities, what I would suggest to you is you say to your staff, okay, we're going to try this activity together, and then you can turn around and use it with the kids. And I find that format of kind of practice as adults to do with kids. And then if you can do it, I mean, every week, or at least every couple of weeks, so, okay, we're going to set this time to practice one of these things together and then do it with the kids. And then the other suggestion that I would have for you is to take a couple of minutes in the start of every meeting that you have, or in the middle, or even at the end of every meeting. And so, okay, we're going to take a little EQ minute and ask those 3 questions. What are some feelings people are having? What are some options? What really matters? And those
Love
3
that.
questions, we call it 1, 2, 3 KCG, know, choose, give. What are you feeling? What are some options? What really matters?
Mhm. Joshua, when you think about what these are somewhat unprecedented times. I mean, you started your comments around not, and this is globally, right? And it's industry wide. It doesn't matter what sector you're in, whether you're in the independent sector, sort of the profit sector, it doesn't, government, doesn't matter. These are unprecedented times. How do you kind of manage all of the externalities and things and the forces that are coming your way? Things that just kind of come out of the blue. How do you recommend people to try to focus on the things that really matter, or should they be focusing on the things that they have control over, even though you have all these things that are influencing it?
Well, I imagine many of you will have heard about the idea of sphere of control and sphere of concern.
Mhm.
And what I think is helpful is just to acknowledge, okay, this is in my sphere of concern, but it's not in my sphere of control.
Mhm.
And by the way, with kids and the growing tide of anxiety and depression issues that young people are facing, This is one of the basic skills that every young person needs. Okay, so is this in your sphere of control? There are actually 3 spheres. In your sphere of control, in your sphere of influence, or your sphere of concern. And just that question for yourself and others, I think you'll find very helpful. I do that when I'm going through Twitter and I feel my blood pressure going up. I feel like scrolling through Twitter is like mindfulness training, it's like super hard, rep, like, can I make it through Twitter without my blood pressure shooting through the roof?
No, you cannot. Trust me, I know, you cannot.
Especially this week. But yeah, so there's all this stuff going on that I do care deeply about. And I don't want to say to myself or anyone else, no, we shouldn't care about that. My goodness, we should care about it.
Right. Right.
And
the issue around, go ahead. The issue around wellness, and you hit on this in your remarks, and we're seeing a lot of challenges, mental well-being as it relates to our young people. That they're, are they safe at home? The clubs were places where they found refuge. The clubs were places where they found a safe and caring adult that they can talk to, and friends that looked after them. What are some of the strategies you would consider or recommend there in terms of recognition of there might be a concern, and how do we as leaders make sure we have some targeted approaches to help them cope with some of the mental health challenges that young people are dealing with today?
Gosh, there's a lot of issues there, Mark. One is about our own powerlessness.
Right.
And when kids are not coming to programs or not coming to school because of the pandemic response, it's a lot harder for us to do our work. And we can be meeting on Zoom, we can be meeting on the phone, we can be sending materials out, but that physical distance is a big barrier for us. And I think, so first, just for us as leaders and counselors and allies, recognizing that that's painful. What I would say is that there is a very, if we think about continuum of care, and we say there's this big range of emotional health, emotional well-being, and physical well-being needs, right? And we say, when we think about something like physical health, we all know, I think, that getting outside and doing some exercise and drinking more water and eating less junk food, like those are things that we can do to increase our physical health. So we already have the kind of mindset to say, this is important, and there are things that I can do. Way before we have a clinical need, right? There are things that I can do. Oh, I can do yoga. I can go for a walk. I can skip rope. I can shoot hoops, whatever it is. But we have the mental model. This is important, and there are things that I can do. I think for the realm of mental health, now I'm not a psychologist, and I'm not a clinician, but I think for the realm of mental health, we don't have that mindset. We have a mindset of healthy, not healthy, well broken. Everything's fine, need clinical care. We have this kind of polar thinking. And I suppose once upon a time we had that about physical health as well. So what I would say is one of the foundational things for all of us is, just like we do with physical health, to recognize emotional health, it matters, and there are things we can do. So I think about it sometimes like a old-fashioned balance scale. We got kind of rocks on the side of emotional struggle. And now in the pandemic, we have some big fat rocks on there, like really being isolated, really being stuck, really being powerless. Boom, that side of the scale is tipping way down. Clinical care can help, but actually clinicians will say it's not enough. Even medication, it's not enough. we need to put some more stuff on this side of the balance scale. So what do we put on this side of the balance scale? Conversation, reflection, acknowledging emotion, positive relationships, positive role modeling, community support, community context, feeling belonging, the stuff that you guys know how to do, you do every day. And, we just have to turn the volume up on that.
Right.
And know, in this context, it's super hard to do. And it's even more important to do.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I'm going to check with my colleagues around the world to see if anyone desires to ask Josh a question. You can unmute yourself. You could send me a chat, and we'll hold for a few minutes to see if anyone has a question.
Well, we got one in the chat here, pop-up festival. So yeah,
Yep.
you know what? It's really fun. And actually several people from the World Federation got to experience this last year in Florida. We actually had a pop-up festival there. And maybe I can just show you super quickly. It's essentially, it's this whole collection. And Mark, if you stop sharing your screen for a second, I'll share mine, and I'll just show you this. I put the link in the chat. When you sign up, you get access to this, and I'll show you in English because my other language skills are not so great. There's some instructions and some background, and then there are activities. And the activities are linked to the Sustainable Development Goals. And so if you're somebody who's working on one of the Sustainable Development Goals, you can pick a Sustainable Development Goal. I'll choose SDG 13, climate action. And this is UNICEF's focus for this year is on climate action. So we added a lot more activities. And then for every activity, you can click on it and you'll see the SDGs it's related to, some instructions, and you can download the handouts right here or the instruction sheet right here. Here's what the kids and or adults will do. And these are discussion questions. And there's on a lot of them, there's a little video that introduces it as well. Okay. So that's, basically we call it a pop-up festival because in the old days when we were doing things together in person, we would pick out some things to do and bring people together and pop, it's a festival.
Well, thank you, Josh, for doing that. And Mari, thank you for your question on the pop-up festival. So we're approaching the end of our time together, and I want to thank you, Josh, for your insightful remarks, making yourself available for the live Q&A. Just a quick reinforcement: this presentation and session will be available on demand on the World Federation website. And you also will receive an email from Libby with a very short survey, brief survey, getting some feedback on today's session, and then topics you would like to see in the future. And I just also would like to point you to the fact that we'll be doing our next webcast sometime in mid-November. And so I want to thank you all. Thank you to the World Federation team, Jose, Libby, Glenn, everyone who had a hand in putting this on for us. And a big thank you to Joshua Friedman for your expertise and time this morning, afternoon, and evening, depending on where you guys are. So with that, that concludes our webcast for today. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mark. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Joshua.